I think the Russia-Ukraine war has clearly demonstrated that ultra-high-tech weaponry is not always the most relevant on the battlefield. What's more important is having traits suited to a specific theater's needs. In the case of a confrontation between two modern armies, the weaponry should be mass-produced, easily scalable, simple to operate, have modernization potential, and most importantly, be inexpensive for its class. Check this out. The Battleship Missouri, a 20th century engineering marvel, stretches 270 meters and displaces 45,000 tons. Its guns were capable of firing a 1-ton shell at a distance of 37 kilometers. But the time of these armored giants is over. The bulky battleships were replaced by Orlyberg-type destroyers, which displaced only about 8,000 tons but could handle many tasks simultaneously. They are part of the Pro-Aegis system, offering missile defense for the country and carrier groups, intercepting anti-ship missiles with SM-6 and ballistic threats with SM-3. The destroyer carries up to 8 Harpoon anti-ship missiles and 8 to 64 Tomahawk cruise missiles based on configuration. 6 Mark 46 torpedoes as well as powerful close-in air defense systems. The Phalanx Mark 15 system evolved Sea Sparrow missile anti-aircraft missiles and the Universal Mark 45 artillery mount with a caliber of 127 mm. On the destroyer's deck helicopter pad, there is an MH-60 Seahawk which is tasked with detecting submarines using sonar buoys. The ship's armament is complemented by modern radars and combat management systems, making Arleigh one of the most advanced warships of our time. And I was really surprised when I heard this.
By the way, I think we should consider battleships. We have a Secretary of the Navy, Vinko. He came to me because I was looking at the Iowa at the dock in California. I was looking at different ships in old photos when you look at their guns. We are really considering the concept of a battleship. 6-inch steel armor, not aluminum, which melts if a missile comes at it. Aluminum starts to melt when the missile is still 2 miles away. They don't build ships like that anymore, but I'm looking at them, and the secretary liked it.
This isn't just another slip of the tongue from old Donald. No, at an emergency briefing at the Marine Corps base in Virginia, Trump outlined priorities for armed forces development to hundreds of commanders. He talked about submarines, the modernization of the nuclear arsenal, the intensification of the development of 6th-generation F-47 fighter jets, and it was stated directly that the Department of Defense, the Department of War, is considering bringing back the battleship concept. This is a bit puzzling. Let me explain. The Research and Development Research Organization has been sounding the alarm in its reports for several years now. It notes the American Army is falling behind main competitors in deploying various unmanned systems, claiming that this is a serious flaw in the United States defense strategy, which, by the way, could be corrected by learning from Ukraine. But it's not only about drones. I'll discuss that later. Just so you understand how significant the analyses of the aforementioned organization are, research and development is not just a think tank, but a real factory of minds. Founded right after World War II to serve the needs of the United States Air Force, research and development quickly turned into a laboratory of ideas, where concepts of nuclear deterrence were created, Cold War scenarios were developed, and theories were born that would determine the course of the United States for decades to come. Some of the greatest minds worked here, including John von Neumann, creator of game theory and modern computing, Alan Newell, and Nobel laureate Herbert Simon. For those who don't know, these are the founders of artificial intelligence. Samuel Cohen, the creator of the neutron bomb. Henry Kissinger, Andrew Marshall, known as the Yoda of the Pentagon, Donald Rumsfeld, Condoleezza Rice, and around a dozen Nobel laureates, top diplomats, politicians, and scientists all worked at research and development. It was the Research and Development Corporation that, after the United States' defeat in Vietnam, developed a new strategic concept called air-land battle at the request of the Pentagon. At the end of the 1970s, President Jimmy Carter approved it, and large-scale rearmament programs were launched under this doctrine. 15 F-16 fighters long-range radar aircraft, 8 NS Apache helicopters, Abrams tanks, Bradley IFVs, high-mobility artillery rocket system Patriot, air defense systems. All these systems were seen as part of one doctrine, where war would be waged with advanced technology, speed, precision, and full military coordination. This led to greatly improved reconnaissance and precise attacks on command centers, radar stations, and communication nodes, as well as total air dominance, which allowed ground forces to operate with complete superiority and firepower. The United States Army, reorganized under the Research and Development Doctrine, fought in 1991 leading Operation Desert Storm and freeing Kuwait from Iraqi occupation. And in 2003, this model of warfare crystallized in the lightning-fast defeat of Iraq. At that time, the Americans managed to defeat the most powerful army in the Middle East in just 20 days, capture an entire country, and overthrow the regime of Saddam Hussein. However, technology has advanced greatly since then. In its latest reports, Research and Development directly states that the doctrine needs to be updated to address new challenges, from robotic systems and electronic warfare tools to unmanned aerial and surface vehicles. Quote from the report,
"The approaches developed before the start of the global war on terrorism, designed to counter secondary or tertiary regional powers, have proven to be clearly insufficient to counter larger, technologically advanced, and more competent military threats from Russia and China. The American Defense Department is rapidly trying to make up for 2 decades of lost time and is forced to take into account completely different operational and strategic requirements, deterring and, if necessary, waging war against equal or nearly equal opponents."
So far, the United States has not made any effort to address the issue identified by research and development analysts. Instead, so far, it's only this.
I'm not a fan of some of the ships you make. I'm an aesthetic person. I don't like the ships you make aesthetically. They say it's stealth. These are ugly ships. They're not needed.
President Trump's statement confused me even more than the idea of bringing back battleships. Maybe the 47th United States President is referring to the failed Zumwalt-class stealth destroyers, but that's unlikely since they were abandoned 7 years ago. Currently, United States shipyards are only building 2 ship types aside from aircraft carriers and submarines. A single guided missile frigate, 62 frigate, and 6 Arleigh Burkes simultaneously. Maybe Mr. Trump means the new Burkes, built with advanced stealth technology. If so, that's a mistake because these ships are the benchmark for modern destroyers. Experts admit this, and so does the main United States adversary in the Pacific region. After all, the backbone of the Chinese combat fleet is the Type 052D, which is a conceptual twin of the Arleigh Burke, and they even look almost the same. And there's nothing surprising about that. The Americans really did create an excellent ship that meets all modern challenges. That's exactly why China launches 3 ships of this class every year. The Chinese Navy already has a total of 25 of them, while the United States has 62 Arleigh Burkes. I want to believe that Trump will eventually see their beauty and there will only be more of them. But with ships, that's not so important. What matters is that in his speech before dozens of generals, the main point wasn't mentioned. It wasn't said that the states need to prepare for a new kind of war, for challenges that battleships are unlikely to be able to answer. I'm not discussing UAVs now. The Research and Development Analytical Center also states,
China occupies 30 to 40% of the global market for outdated semiconductors, which makes it very likely that Chinese components are present in any equipment that uses semiconductors. Whether it's vehicle control systems, pumps, or even lighting electrical circuits. The problem isn't that such parts might reveal some elements of operational security, but that suppliers often can't find alternatives other than the available Chinese products.
We often talk about how the United States blocks advanced processors and restricts selling lithography machines to China. But we forget that China controls the production of less advanced, but no less important components. Microcontrollers, power management chips, memory boards, various microchips, diodes, transistors, sensors, detectors, and so on. And so on, all made by China. That is, of course, without access to the most advanced processors, China still lags behind the United States in the field of artificial intelligence development. But to launch missiles at each other, 3nm processors aren't needed. They're also not needed in drones, which have already been talked about so much.
In June, President Trump issued an order to release American dominance in the field of drones, to support our drone industry and arm our soldiers, which is what we all strive for. Here is the memorandum that we are signing today.
Yes, this is truly an important step from the American ministry. The initiative is absolutely right. But here's the thing. The memorandum signed by Pete Hegseth lacks specifics. There are no allocated funds for microelectronics manufacturers. There are no allocated funds for the companies that can assemble UAVs. And so far, the result is as follows. Trent Emeneker, head of the Blue AA program from the Defense Innovation Unit, stated the following in his interview with National Defense magazine.
The Ministry of Defense must provide the industry with the funding necessary to strengthen drone supply chains. To date, the ministry has received virtually no funds into the unmanned aerial vehicle ecosystem. You could say it's a couple $100 million.
Over the past 12 months, we have purchased less than 4,000 platforms from the Ministry of Defense, while a single Ukrainian company can produce 4,000 drones a day, editors of a reputable magazine add.
It's good the Pentagon realizes how much drones have changed modern warfare and that catching up in unmanned aerial vehicle development is necessary. But so far nothing has moved off dead center. Andy Pete Hexeta's words about the intention to surpass China in the production of such systems really reflect Washington's position, then simply removing bureaucratic restrictions is clearly not enough. A large-scale reconfiguration of the entire industrial policy is required. The United States is certainly capable of such a step. There is a detailed analysis, the link to which I will leave in the description, showing that there are companies and production facilities in the States that make it possible to produce every necessary component for UAVs. However, the key point of this study is formulated in the conclusion. That's where the main problem of the Pentagon's initiative is identified. I quote, "The Franklin Roosevelt administration did not develop the B-24. It guaranteed Ford that if Willow Run produced one bomber per hour, the government would buy every single one." We still need that clarity today, but it hasn't been achieved. So far, it's just about battleships, and that lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender representatives are no longer allowed in the American Army.
No more identity months, offices for inclusivity and equality, or guys in women's dresses. No climate agenda, no divisions, and no crazy gender ideas. I've already said it and I'll say it again, this crap is over.
Yeah, the initiative is likely right. But being on the brink of a global war, which is not just my opinion, but what the experts at the Research and Development Corporation are saying, spending so much time on this issue while speaking in front of hundreds of American commanders is probably not very reasonable. I think it's necessary to focus on more pressing issues. And now you might ask, why am I telling you all this? Well, or maybe you won't ask, it doesn't matter. I'll explain anyway. First of all, as I already mentioned, my videos are dubbed in English, and even if just a few dozen United States citizens see this material, that will already be good. In the previous video, we discussed China's goals and its not-so-peaceful plans. Many people doubted that China is really preparing for an intervention in Taiwan. I myself would rather not believe it either. But there are too many signals indicating that the world is on the verge of a serious conflict. Most importantly, if Beijing truly has such a plan, now appears to be the best time to implement it. Right now, when unknown drones are buzzing over Europe and the United States has not fully realized that its military doctrine is outdated, as analysts from research and development are writing. This is exactly the time when China might try to reunite with Taiwan by force and then present the world with a fait accompli. From now on, it would not only be a global power, but also a country controlling the production of the most advanced technologies. After all, as we remember, Taiwan is the world's factory for high-tech processors. And in such a situation, Washington's reckless actions and Europe's criminal inaction become, in fact, a direct invitation for China to use force against the island. After all, in big politics, any weakness instantly turns into someone else's victory.
People in uniforms like Russian ones blocked parts of the Ukrainian army in Crimea. They were Russian soldiers.
Look at the post-Soviet space. There are plenty of uniforms that look like other uniforms. Go to a store here and buy any uniform you want.
Were those Russian soldiers or not?
Those were local self-defense forces.
What does the Army have to say about the accusation of using unregistered paramilitary ships to carry out intimidation in the Taiwan Strait?
I want to ask, if these are called unregistered ships, how did you determine that they are Chinese? This is nothing but pure slander. It's like a thief shouting, "Catch the thief!"
Probably when future generations study history textbooks about the beginning of the 21st century, they will inevitably wonder, how could it be that at a time when Russian drones were already circling over Europe, European Union countries continued to buy gas, oil, and metals from the aggressor country? Why did democratic leaders continue to pay homage to China while the Celestial Empire was becoming Russia's economic rear, adopting its military experience, and at the same time increasing threats against Taiwan? And I wonder if our descendants will be convinced by the explanation that's being given now, that it was financially beneficial. Will they see it as rational for today's politicians to ignore provocations, sabotage, assassinations and drone raids, hoping things will resolve themselves? But the main question is different. What conclusions will our descendants draw from the mistakes of today? Will they be able to build a system based on a simple principle? Is prevention easier than handling consequences? A system in which cowardice for the sake of short-term gain will be considered a betrayal of the future? I don't know the answers to all these questions. I just hope that they will choose to exist, unlike our generation.